name's Glenna, and this is my knitting channel called the Knotty Giraffe. And I believe this is episode 15 already. Time flies, eh? I'm coming to you from Kelowna, British Columbia, where I live with my two dogs, one of whom is misbehaving a little bit today, so hopefully he will stay quiet, and if not, I'll have to just pause and go put him out. I have quite a bit to talk to you about today. I've got some finished objects, an advent calendar mishap that, boy, did I get taken in, but I got them back, so I'll tell you all about that one. And some works in progress and a frogged sweater. So yeah, without any more delay, I will get on with it and start with my first finished object, which is this sweater that I'm wearing called the Helga. I started this sweater, well, the first time I started it was probably a year ago, I think. And it's a pattern it's a free pattern that you can get on Ravelry. The designer's name is, just a sec, I have it written here. Of course, I need my glasses to see it. Emily Nora O'Neill is her name. And it's a free cable knit pattern. It's supposed to be knit flat in pieces from bottom up. And that is where my adventure began, because I didn't want to knit it flat. I wanted to try knitting it in the round. So the first couple of times I tried it, I just made, silly errors when I was trying to read the pattern back, instead of, going back and forth, reading it, going around. And I made so many mistakes in this and just had to keep ripping it out. And then last episode, I had finished the body and was trying to figure out how to do the sleeves, because I had changed the construction of the body. And I wanted to knit the sleeves in the round as well, as instead of knitting them flat. So yeah, it was changing it from knitting from cuff up to a capped shoulder, to picking up stitches and knitting it down. And so that was a bit of a challenge. It took me, actually I kind of got it right first try. What I did was I just did a few rows on each side. I had 2 balls of yarn going with 2 different sets of needles, so that I could repeat what I did on each side the same. I started by just, picking up 7 stitches right at the top and knitting across, and then picking up 1 from each edge, and then I threw in a couple of short rows, which was a bit of a challenge, because as you can see, it's done in a moss stitch. So I don't know if you can even see that or not, but yeah, it's a moss stitch for the sleeves. So yeah, it was a bit of a challenge to figure out. And then of course I was playing yarn chicken, and the yarn that I used to knit it with, it's Kelborn Lucky Tweed, it's called Kelborn Woolen Lucky Tweed. And it is, honestly, I have some here, and this is how easy of course I pick a spot where it doesn't, but this is how, it just pulls apart so easily, that I had all sorts of places where I snagged the yarn on something and it just snapped, and I had to, it's not the easiest stuff to work with, and it doesn't feel the greatest, but I thought that it would give really nice definition to the cables. The cables are quite pretty. As you can see, it's got like little flower motifs that run down the front, and then the crisscross across the center panel, and more flowers down the side, and it's the same on the back as it is on the front. I'll insert a picture of the sweater close up so you can get better details of it, but it's a really nice pattern, and it wasn't all that difficult. If you're an advanced knitter, you can figure out how to make it knit it in the round instead of panels, or you could just knit it in panels and seam it together if you don't mind seaming. I just don't like seaming all that much because I'm not very neat at it. So I thought I would try and avoid it if possible, and I did manage to avoid it. So yeah, I'm quite happy with it. It's turned out great. So yeah, so that is finished object number 1. So finished object number 2, actually I will put it on. It is, it's my 3rd shift that I've made from Andrea Mallory's pattern. And this time I decided instead of following her pattern completely, I decided to make mine a little bit smaller because I wanted something that was going to be more tight around my neck. I love my other shifts, but they're very baggy in the neck, and I wanted something tighter that was going to really work to keep the cold out. So I believe if you followed her pattern at all, I think it's supposed to go up to like 150 stitches or something at its widest. And so I think I made mine like 142 or something like that. I left out about 8 rows, and I found that it's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted. I haven't blocked it yet, so that's why the edges are all curling up. But I wanted to use up some stash yarn that I had. I had some Malabrigo Oroya that I had used when I knit my, what was that called? The Emily, the Boyland knit sweater. Having a brain blank here. I'll put the name of the sweater in on the bottom. If you want to look, it'll be written right there. But it was, yeah, I had some leftover yarn from that, and so I thought, what the heck, I'm going to use it up and make another shift. And so I did, but then of course, you know how it is, you want to use up stash and you get started on a project and then you think, gee, it would be really nice if it had just one other color in there. So I ended up buying the plum color and putting that in too, which, so yeah, the colors I used, what were they called? I will put all the color names down below here. I'd actually almost forgotten about this finished project before I started recording. So anyhow, yeah, this is finished object number 2, the shift. And if you've never made one, I mean, I'm sure just about everybody has, but if you haven't, it's a really great introduction into knitting color work because it's all done with mosaic stitching. So you're never knitting with more than one color at a time. You always have 2 strands on the go, but you knit back and forth, and then you knit a row of, knitting a couple and then slipping a couple of stitches. And so like with the other color, so it carries it along and back again. And anyway, don't think I explained that terribly well, but yeah, look up mosaic knitting if you've never done it. Just look for a tutorial on YouTube and you'll see it's very, very simple and easy to do. All right, so, all right, there goes the dog. Just a minute. All right, so finished object number 3 is the art class cardigan by Rachel Brockman. It's a free design on Ravelry. And yes, I said it's called a cardigan, and this is clearly not a cardigan. So what I did was, me and my loving of knitting in the round, I decided after, like it's a top-down knit, so with like raglan sleeves. So once it got to the point where you divide for the sleeves, I decided to just join it and knit in the round. And then I added a button band just to do the top up and a couple of buttons. I knit it using Juniper Moon, what was it called? Juniper Moon something. Juniper Moon, Juniper Moon Farms Cumulus Stripes it's called. It's a really, really, really soft cotton. It's just, oh wow, it is so soft. I just love, like, I would love to own something in this, I think. Yeah, it was a little bit of yarn chicken, trying to make sure that I could get it all done with just one skein, and I did. Just barely. The sleeves are maybe a little short, so maybe it's a baby with short arms, I can hope. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. That's horrible. That's an awful thing to say. I grew up during the age when mothers were given thalidomide, and actually went to school with kids that had, you know, very short arms or no arms, just hands. So I shouldn't joke about that, and I apologize, but anyway, it is a summer sweater, so I think that if it's bracelet length, I think that that's acceptable. So yeah, this was a really fast, easy knit. I think it was 5mm needles, so it knit up very quickly. And yeah, just a really fun, simple, pretty pattern. Oh, there goes my clock. And there goes the dog heading to the door. But hopefully he will still stay quiet as I move on to my third finished object. So my fourth finished object since my last recording is a pair of Christmas socks that I knit. I was working on these last episode. I think I'd already finished the first sock and was down to just about the toe of the second sock. So, oh, there goes the other clock. And yeah, they were, I didn't try to make them match. I thought about trying to line them up. You can tell I've been wearing them. I had to go to a Christmas party, and so yeah, I've already worn them. But yeah, they were knit with, oh, what was the name of the yarn? It's called Relana Garn Flot Sock, I think. Fuck Christmas. F-A-C-H, fuck, I think it's pronounced. I didn't swear. And it's, yeah, I as I mentioned last episode, I was a little disappointed with the white color on this because the green seems to have bled really badly. So it was a bit of a disappointment, but yeah, they're Christmassy. They sing out the word Christmas when you put them on your feet, which is nice, and that's what I wanted. So I'm pretty happy with them. They're just my standard vanilla sock pattern that I know inside, outside, upside down, that I use for every pair of socks pretty much that I make. With 64 stitches on 2.25mm needles, knit in the round from cuff to toe. I use a slip stitch heel and gussets, and yeah, then Kitchener stitch the toe together at the end. And yeah, I will link the pattern for the vanilla sock pattern that I use. It's not the Crazy Sock Ladies, mine's different. Instead of doing the slip stitch all down in rows on the heel, I alternate mine on each row so that it zigzags back and forth, and I think that makes it stronger. So yeah, that's finished object number 4, and that's all my finished objects for this month. So I guess it's on to works in progress. So I only have one work in progress at the moment, which is very rare for me. Well, actually, no, I guess I have more if you count my just my on-the-go blankets that I'm working on with, my scrappy projects. Yeah, it's just a pair of socks that I'm working on right now. And yeah, I've started, as I said, it's cuffed down. I did the cuff and the heel, and I'm just switched colors on to doing the toe. For the main ball of yarn, I'm using some Regia, and yeah, I think what's the color called? It's Winter Wires color or something it's called. But it was kind of deceiving when I saw the ball. I didn't see the yellow as being quite as prominent. I'm not as crazy about the yellow stripes as I am about the rest of it. That's why I chose to use a pink contrast. The pink I had left over from a few other projects. It was from a fade kit, a blooming fade kit that I bought like a year and a half ago when I was in Victoria at the Vibrations Yarn Festival from a company called Rose Hill, I think it was called. I don't have the labels, I've lost it, but I've got this much left, and I'm hoping that that's enough to finish the toe and do the heel, cuff, and toe on the second sock. So my other project that I was working on was the Ophelia sweater, and I just ended up frogging that last night. I was really struggling with it. It's been a while since I've struggled with a pattern that badly. Well, not really, I guess, because I struggled with my Helga when I was trying to convert it. But this one, I wasn't trying to convert anything. I was only trying to read it. And I just found the pattern to be very, very, very confusing, especially when it moved to the charts. I know how to read a chart when it goes, how to normally read a chart, but this had like 3 different charts for the top section, depending on whether you were at the sleeve part or the front or the back. And it just didn't make sense to me. It just did not make sense to me at all. And I fought with it, and I tried going back and forth, and I ripped out, and I tried again, and I ripped out, and I tried again. And then finally last night I just said, you know what, I'm supposed to be enjoying myself when I'm knitting. So I just ended up frogging it, and I'm thinking that I'm going to use the same yarn for the Hinterland by Jennifer Steingass. I loved the last one of her patterns that I did, and so I think that I would probably really enjoy doing the Hinterland. I've purchased the pattern already, so very excited to get started on that. So hopefully on my next episode, I will have progress to show you on that one. So that's it for my knitting. I did want to talk a little bit about the awful advent calendar scam that I got sucked into off of Facebook. It was a company called Cozyland, and they were promising that their advent kit would contain 3 100-gram skeins of fingering weight yarn, plus 24 20-gram little mini skeins of fingering weight merino, and it was promising it was merino as well. So I decided I was curious because it was cheap, I think it was like $48 US or something like that, which is like ridiculously cheap, and I knew that. But I was thinking that maybe it would be, that maybe it was just ends that they had managed to salvage and turn into these kits or something. And instead, I'll insert some pictures of what arrived. I know you're supposed to wait until the 1st of December to open advent calendars, but I was curious because I wanted to see what it was. I thought, well, I'll open it and at least, see what the 100-gram skeins are like. So you can imagine how mad I was. I was going to say another word, but I'll just say mad, when I opened the box up and there was 0 100-gram skeins. Instead, there was 4 little skeins that each weighed, well, with a label on, they were just over 9 grams, but if you took the label off, they were under 9 grams each. And then I started opening up the little packages to see what the daily ones were, and it was the exact same thing. They were all 9 grams or less each and it wasn't even fingering weight yarn, and it does not feel like merino. It's like this cheap acrylic stuff. So anyway, I ended up I had paid through PayPal, so I contacted PayPal and lodged a complaint. And Cozyland immediately sent me an email and said we are an international company and shipping is too expensive, so we will offer you a 10% refund. So I wrote back, I said, no, that's not gonna fly. So then they wrote me back and offered me a 20% refund. I'm like, no. So so that's when I lodged my complaint through PayPal. And then I get an email from them saying as soon as I remove my complaint, they will refund my money. And if you read PayPal's little clauses, it says that once you close a claim, you cannot reopen it. So I wrote Cozyland back again, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to close the claim until it's settled. And then they wrote me back, I don't know how many times, at least 3 more times, asking me and then begging me to please close my complaint. And finally, I figured out on PayPal how to escalate the complaint into an actual claim. And I ended up being refunded fully once I presented all the evidence to PayPal. They fully refunded my money. But what got me so upset is that most people are not going to open their Advent calendar until the 1st of December. And if you read the fine print on Cozyland's page, it says that you have to you have 14 days after you receive it to lodge your complaint or to get a refund. So, if they mail out their Advent kit and you get it at the end of October and you don't open it until the 1st of December, you're hooped. You're too late. There's nothing you can do about it. So, I was pretty upset and I wanted to warn people. So I put some posts up on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and Facebook promptly pulled my post off, I guess because they were one of their advertisers. But anyway, I did get some nice notes from people who had mentioned that they had been tempted to order through Cozyland, and thankfully, after reading my stuff, they had not done it. So if anybody else had a different experience with Cozyland, you can let me know. But yeah, so that was it for Advent. And that's it for all my knitting stuff. So if you're interested in my reading, which I always mention reading at the end of my podcast, if you are interested in what I've been reading, stay on the line. And if not, I will catch you next time round. So I've got my reading glasses on so I can talk about reading because I have my notes in my computer down below here. So excuse me for looking away a lot. But as always, I have read and listened to a ton of books since the last time I recorded. I learned how to knit while I was reading a couple of decades ago. And so I often read while I'm knitting, and then sometimes I will do audiobooks as well. Not too often, but once in a while I'll do an audiobook. The first one up was called Prairie Edge by an author named Conor Kerr. And it was one of the novels that was on the long list for this year's Canadian Giller Prize Award, which is, one of the, if not the most prestigious literary award that's given out here annually in Canada. And I love this story. It was told from 2 different points of view. The writing is gritty and real, and it takes a very sad look into the life of a Métis boy who grew up in foster care, and a young woman who's Cree, who decides to release a herd of stolen buffalo into Edmonton's River Valley, sort of trying to return it to its natural, take the land back sort of thing. And yeah, it's just, I really, really, really enjoyed this book. There was, enough tension in it that you just kept reading and turning pages, and it's just beautifully told. And I was actually really sad that it did not make the short list for the Giller, because I think it should have. Uh, at least I don't think it made the short list. I'm gonna have to double check that now. I can't remember which ones got cut during when they announced the short list. But yeah, so that was the first book I read, and I'd highly recommend it. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5. The second one I did was also definitely shortlisted for Giller, and it's called What I Know About You by Eric Chacour. It is just the most beautifully written book. The first part is written in second person, which you don't see a lot of anymore. Instead of like, I did this or they did this, it's you did this. And you don't know who the narrator is. You have no idea who the narrator is. And then as it tells the story of this man, Tariq, who has homosexual tendencies, but he's, done the right thing and married a woman. And it takes place in Cairo, most of it, until he moves to Montreal. But it's just, it's great because it really shows you, that how quickly things can just fall apart, and the fallout from having non-normal sexual urges from what is deemed to be acceptable, or was back in the day kind of thing. So yeah, I gave that a full 5 out of 5. I just loved that one. Next on the list was The Art of Camouflage by Sara Power. And I had the privilege of meeting Sara and hearing her read in person when I was in Newfoundland on my second trip there this summer. And she is just delightful, and her stories are quirky and just it's just a unique look at women, and most of the stories involve the transient lifestyle of being part of military life. And, she examines what it means to be a mother or a daughter or a woman looking for a friend or fearing her safety at the start of the 21st century. It's just, it's all short stories. They're not connected. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that one. It's a very good book. The next one I read was another book of short stories called Death by a Thousand Cuts by Shashi Bhat. I enjoyed most of her stories, but as they offer a really nice glimpse into Indian culture, and I really liked it, but I couldn't give it a full 4 out of 5 because I found it just kind of lacked depth somehow. It's like it's written by a young author who doesn't have enough life experience to write anything richer than that, which, I don't mean to sound ageist or anything, but writing is one of those things where you need to have life experience to be able to write about it. It's very difficult if you haven't. So yeah, it was good, but yeah. The next on the list was Rage the Night by Donna Morrissey. And there again, I got to meet Donna this summer when I was in Newfoundland and hear her read. She was at the same Writers Festival, which if you ever want to go to a really, really, really cool Writers Festival, Writers at Woody Point is just unbelievably amazing. Woody Point is this tiny little town of, just a few hundred people that just blows up in the summer with people coming in to go to this festival, and they bring in just like the biggest name authors, or Canadian authors anyways, and it's a chance where you actually get to interact with them. You see them on the streets and the cafes, and everyone's just so kind and so nice. And Woody Point, the area is magical, but I digress. Anyway, I read Donna Morrissey's Rage the Night, which is based on the true story of when 77 men were perished after they were left behind on the ice pans when they were out seal hunting. It's also a story of a man searching for his identity after the supposed death of his mother, and growing up as an orphan. So yeah, I would have liked to have given that one a 4.5, but they don't have 4.5 ratings on Goodreads, so I gave it a 4. Couldn't quite give it a 5, but it was good. Next up was The Fraud by Zadie Smith. And if you are a regular watcher of my channel, you might know that I tried to do this one on audiobook. And then I tried reading it, and I was in the middle of too many other things, and I couldn't get into it for some reason, and I don't know why. I think it's because it's written in very short chapters, and I found it kind of disconnecting. But then when I realized that she's trying to sort of parallel how Dickens wrote, it all kind of clicked in my brain, and I just absolutely loved it. It got a full 5 out of 5 from me. It's just her main character, Mrs. Touche, is just this quirky woman, and actually all the characters in her book are quirky. And I have a soft spot for quirky characters, and it just made me laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. I really loved it. She has a dry sense of humor that just the way she tells a story. If you've never read Zadie Smith, she's definitely an author worth checking out. So 3 more to go here. The next one I did was Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, and I did that one on audiobook. And honestly, the first maybe 150 pages of it, I'm guessing, I was riveted, absolutely riveted. I was a single mother, and I married an abusive man, and I know the trouble that I had with the violence and everything in regards to my son that I had when I went into the marriage with, and to the point where I had to leave, and where I should have left earlier, but that's water under the bridge. But anyway, this is I just couldn't put it down at first, and then I don't know what it was. I think it was something happens at a truck stop that is so far-fetched and ridiculous that I kind of fell out of the story. And then the narrator's voice started bothering me, and then it just kind of kept going downhill from there. And it was, yeah, I don't think I'll ever read another Barbara Kingsolver book. I don't know if you're a fan, I apologize, but I am not. I just found it to be really contrived, and yeah, it's a good, honest look, or maybe it isn't, because I don't know all that much about, what it's like to live in a trailer park. But it just, I did like the characters the other characters, like the female characters she did, of Angus and Emmy. I loved them. But it became a struggle to actually finish this one. I was really glad when it was done, and I gave it a 3 out of 5. So the second to last one I did was another shortlist for the Giller Prize, which was Anne Fleming's Curiosities. I love the format that she wrote this book in. It's written as, she writes herself as the author into the book as being somebody that's doing research. And she was doing research. She came across these letters and stuff, and she decided to put together a story using it. And it's the story of these 2 children who bond when most of the town dies in a pandemic. and they go to live with this old woman who is mute. And then the old woman gets accused of witchcraft, and the kids get taken away and separated. And one of them goes on to, they're both female by birth, and one of them goes to live with this Lady Margaret as a, as the lady's personal companion or whatever, like, a girl to take care of her. And the other one gets taken away on a ship and decides on the ship that she would be a lot freer if they thought she was a boy. So she trades clothes with a young boy who dies on the ship and calls herself Tom instead of Thomasina, and then just grows up as a man, even though she's a woman. Or so anyway, but it's really interesting, the way that it deals with like the whole witch hunt thing, and then just the without giving too much away, Tom and oh my gosh, now I've forgotten the girl's name. They end up, the two children end up reuniting as adults and are in love with each other, and they get spotted by somebody who knows Tom to be a man, and they accuse the girl of having taken Tom's penis because she's a witch. They say she must be a witch, that she has removed his, removed his yard, they call it. So yeah, it was really neat. It was you're not sure how it's going to happen, because you get the whole story told through these different points of view, the letters by Tom's friend and the letters by Lady Margaret, is how you get the children's stories as having met. So anyway, it's a really interesting book. It's called Curiosities, and Anne Fleming was one of my professors when I took creative writing in university, so it was kind of neat to see her on the Giller list. Last but not least, was The Cure for Drowning by Logan Paler. And maybe I just timed this one wrong by reading it right after Anne Fleming's, because it was another story about a girl who grows up dressing as a man. But this one, and then she goes off to, fight in the Air Force as a fighter pilot and all this stuff. And it was just not right for the era that it was supposed to be written. I mean, how could a woman possibly, be in barracks with men during the war, and, having to go outside to take a leak, whatever. And, how could they not know? How could she even pass the physical as being a man to get into the army? Like, it's so far-fetched that I had a hard time dealing with it. What I did love about the novel, though, was her pacing, and that it being told from two different narrators, although there was no need to overlap as much as she did. But the descriptions of farm life and being in the forest, and it was beautifully written, but at the end it was just overwritten. It was like the way she ended it, it was sappy, and it was too much. So unfortunately I gave that one a 3 out of 5. So that's it for reading and knitting, and pretty much it for me. I'm just working on the final draft, or just the first set of revisions on my own novel that I got back from the editor that I was assigned, and loving it. My editor is absolutely brilliant, and I am thrilled to be working with her. So that's about it in a nutshell. I hope you have a good month or two, or until I'm back on YouTube again. Thanks for watching, and yeah, happy Thanksgiving to my American friends, and if I don't see you beforehand, happy holidays. All right, okay, bye for now.